suspected extraocular mesonephria in all cases of phoria, because you are testing in a child, and if you find a phoria, even if not tropia, go for a full cycloplegic refraction. Then in infants and children where vision is difficult to assess, a lot of 2 years, with even with Allen's or even with, I have Teller's cards also with me. I try, but sometimes the child is not attentive. You do not get a correct, assessment of the vision. Then you always go for a refractive error, correction of refractive error. In repeat refraction with stronger cycloplegic where asthenopic symptoms continue. Number in actual or suspected ciliary spasm in children also do that. Now, atropine is very judicially used in all cases. I mean, especially I use it up to 3 years of life, not only one, but 3, but only ointment. Now, remember this thing, this is very important. 1% of atropine contains 10 milligram per ml. We all know that. What is the meaning of 1%? The meaning of 1% is 10 milligram per ml. Now listen carefully. There are 10 drops per ml. That means 1 ml. There are 10 drops per ml. That means if you put 1 drop in the eye, you are putting 1 milligram per drop, because there are 10 milligram in 1 ml. 10 drops. 1 ml contains 10 drops. So that means one drop contains 1 milligram. So 1 drop, when you are instilling in the eye of a child, you are instilling 1 milligram. Now 1 drop in each eye yield 2 milligram. 2 milligram. Okay. Now 2 milligram in each eye. Listen carefully. 2 milligram in each eye. If you put it in both eyes, it is 4 milligrams. This is 4 times the adult parenteral dose. You only give 0.4 milligram when you get an IV atropine. So this is 4 times the dose of a parenteral in an adult. Therefore, only 1 drop each eye should not be exceeded. Okay, and that's why we always say that when you block the puncta for at least 15 minutes. You block the puncta for at least 15 minutes when you are instilling an atropine drop in a child of more than 4 years. If there is a necessity, because usually I give only home atropine, is very rarely when there's a lot of cycloplegic, there's a spasm, or there's a very high hypermetropia when you see with a normal refraction. Because after 8 years, I usually give 6 years, I usually give cycloplegia, cyclopentyl or tropicamide. But when I find that it is not reacting, I go for these hypertropics. So I think I will stop here. These are certain examples which you can learn from that. I will stop here, and if there are some questions, then we'll discuss later on with these questions. Okay, thank you very much for your patient hearing. I assume and I hope that something must it must have affected you, and you'll be careful when you're managing a child with refractables. Thank you. Now over to you, Virendra.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Yogesh Tripla. It was really very fascinating listening to all the insights that you gave. Now moving to the second speaker, Dr. Virendra Agarwal. You can take over, sir. You can start the screen sharing and start the presentation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a really overall enlightening talk, particularly for refractive errors in children. And many learnings were there. And my topic is to correct or do something to correct the refractive errors. Here, I would like to say one thing, that what you have covered is really big, extensive, and beyond something which people can think of or usually do it. But what I mean to say is that is really required thing, because most of the time what you require is that refractive error should be addressed in a very proper manner. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Yes, sir, you are.
Thank you, sir. Though the refractive surgery is not very common, and why it is not very common, the reason is very clear. Because we are still confused what to correct, when to correct, how to correct, and what we'll be achieving. Because our aim is to give a good vision to a child who is suffering something, and exactly not like a disease in other means there is no organic disorder, except the things are not in focus. And as we know, and very well highlighted by you, sir, that whenever the visual deprivation of any sort, maybe in the clarity, focus, quality, they all affect. Particularly like where you said that high metropia or astigmatism, and when it becomes unequal in both eyes, it becomes very, very important. As we all know, a healthy visual maturation requires a correction of refractive errors. That means sometime emmetropia or anisometropia in children. Besides something as a organic disorder. If it is not there, only it is a error related to the refractive errors, they need to be addressed as soon as possible. Though there are many things like a congenital cataract or developmental cataract, they also need early surgery. And that also can be used as a one tool to improve the vision. We all know that high refractive errors, because of their quality of poor vision in the child's mind, have a significant impact on his learning and in his social behavior. Because what all he sees is being grasped, what all he sees is being reacted, and the way he reacts, that only decides that what he will do or what somebody can think of in doing as a development. So there are many indications. I will just elaborate a very few. And but with
Sorry
the
to
common
interrupt you, sir.
that-
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. The
Yes.
screen is not visible. The PPT is
screen
not
is-
visible.
Viraj, your PPT is not visible on the screen.
Sorry, so that is what I asked. I will
Are you-
share again.
You asked about audibility, that was there.
Okay. Okay. So should I share again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It is there now.
I hope it is visible now.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So I will just go through the slides. I will not read in detail. So people who are listening, they will make a point. So this is where we are to start the refractive surgery in pediatric population as a second talk of this session. And as you know, the pediatric refractive surgery is not very common. The reasons are many, but it is required in cases where we are not able to give good refractive correction by common means of glasses, sometimes contact lenses. So whenever you are having problem with these, you are only left with something to do as a surgery. I have my own reservations for doing this. I hope now it is everything clear, the
Yes,
slide
yes,
and
yes.
audio. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sir. Thank you. So whenever there is a inability or intolerance to glasses or contact lenses, maybe because of some physical reason, mental reasons, or because of the quality of vision with the two different eyes, you have to choose something to make them near equal or the normal. Anisometropia is a very common indication, but when I said in the beginning that I have my own reservations for choosing any refractive surgery, as Dr. Shukla has very correctly and emphatically prompted out that proper cyclopedia to know the actual refractive error is the most important thing before you start doing some surgery. Giving wrong glasses, giving wrong contact lenses is easily reversible, correctable. But doing a refractive surgery in a child may not be reversible the way we want. So we should be very, very concerned about doing proper cyclopedia, correcting it, checking it again and again, and then only jumping into decision to correct it. Our aim is to develop optimal binocular vision. That is the most important thing. And elimination of anisometropia or anisometropia or high hypermetropia, because they all have impact on visual development, mental development, binocular vision, the fusion, hysteropsis, and many other things. And you know, the flexibility of this development is there in very early age only. As the age progresses, this becomes difficult to achieve. You may have two aligned eyes looking no astigmatism, but there may not be any fusion. And as I said in the beginning, because of some reasons that patient is not cooperative or not able to wear glasses like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, or some compliance issues in occlusion therapy, more so because of the nuclear family development. Both parents are very busy, and the social reasons that we are moving very often now socially, and it is difficult to have the compliance in a social times, and because of this it becomes very poor compliance in other time also. And I feel still personally, I think Dr. Shukla sir will also agree that occlusion therapy is the most important thing in correcting amyotropia. It as a treatment, mainstay of the treatment for amblyopia, and the results are very, very good. Though there are differences, people are doing part-time occlusion or full-time occlusion, or they are doing kind of occlusion by atopenization or something else. We are not going into that detail, but we know that giving equal chance to both eyes in early age actually makes the difference. And that is why sometimes you require or you resort to something like refractive surgery correction, because our aim is to equalization of visual input in both eyes, thus avoiding favoring one eye for developing and preventing other eye to develop. And just by improving the quality of visual input significantly in both eyes or in one eye, wherever it is required, will make the big difference. There are many options which are commonly, you all know, are laser refractive correction surgery. They can be implantable lenses in a normal eye. These are phakic lenses, or there can be a refractive lens exchange. There are so many controversies around each. So I will just discuss in brief, and then we would like to have an interaction or question answer if possible. LASIK is very, very popular surgery for adults. Very, very good results. Maybe it is a LASIK, femto LASIK, or a SMILE. They all are having very, very good results. Many millions have been done in India and abroad. Very fast recovery, as you all know. But the basic issue in LASIK, we do a flap creation and then refractive correction on the stroma. And in children, the flap may have many, many issues. The child may not be very cooperative to prevent rubbing in an immediate post-op period. We have means to cover it. We can use cover. We can have protections, and protection wear will avoid it. The parents will take care, but still there can be issue. And we know the LASIK, sometimes the trauma causes issues with the flap. And if the flap reposition is not very good, again there is an issue. Post-op examination of the flap is also an issue because it is not very easy to do a slit lamp examination in a very early age. Though we are not going to do LASIK in 1 or 2 years of age, but even 5, 6 or 10 years of age also patient not allow slit lamp examination in a very comfortable manner. There are other issues which we'll cover with the LASIK and epi-LASIK or surface. The surface ablation has come out as a rescue to prevent the complications of LASIK in pediatric age gaze. In adult, we prefer LASIK if it is fit, but in children, we can go for surface ablation to avoid the complications of the flap. But now there are different sets of complications or problems we face. The main problem is that the children have a higher or better or a quick response of healing. And because of this, the corneal haze may be a big issue. We are doing this kind of surgery, maybe LASIK or surface, in an age which is usually not known for keratoconus. As we all know, keratoconus usually common in teens, and particularly in teens, late teens, around 15 plus. And we are doing this kind of refractive surgery at the age of less than 10, less than 5, or anything less than, in which keratoconus may be diagnosed by the usually available tools of topography, thickness, and other issues, which are not very comfortable. And it is very difficult to have actual topography, actual pentagram, or Scheimpflug imaging, or some other imaging tools we do before doing LASIK. Just doing ultrasound sonography as a common tool is not advised nowadays, because that may miss the actual thinned out part, and not doing topography or not doing Scheimpflug imaging may actually miss that form first keratoconus, because just by having a keratometry of 40, 45, which we think is normal in majority of the patient, may not be normal in future. So that is a one big issue against the laser refractive surgery. There are so many other issues also which we will discuss in time. So healing is common, haze is common, and if there is a significant haze, it will affect the quality of vision. It will again have the refractive error coming to the previous stage, means pre-refractive surgery stage. So that also is a issue. Then you need to do a parents counseling, because when we do LASIK in adult patient, our aim and our success is depending on that getting rid of glasses, and that we are able to achieve in majority. Very rarely we need to say to the patient that you may not be having a full correction with the LASIK because of some parameters. We are doing under correction, and that is accepted because the patient is also understanding, parents are also understanding. But in case of children, the issue is that full correction is usually not achieved, may not be required also is one reason, because the other eye may be having some refractive error, so we want to make equalization. The number is going to change or may change definitely over the period of time, and there is no fixed rule that how patient will progress. Means we can't do overcorrection by any means, and sooner or later the patient may again have a high ametropia or high anisometropia. We have seen many patients in whom anisometropia is there since the age of 2, 3, 4 years. The gap is increasing over the time. It is not maintained same. Means what I mean to say, the elongation of eye usually is more in a already elongated eye, or sometime the smaller eye remains further small. But majority of the hypermetropia try to achieve emmetropization, as Dr. Shukla sir has already pointed out. In majority of the patients, in early age it happens, but that age we are not going to do a refractive surgery. Means less than 2, 3 years of age, it is a aim for emmetropization, but in later age it is not so. So the difference may keep on increasing and the purpose may fail. The role of postoperative follow-ups is very, very important, because you require a frequent follow-up. You need to use steroids which have different complications like a glaucoma, cataract, or some issues with the surface also. Though not very common, but it can be there. And to have particularly good results in surface ablations, you need to give steroids for a longer period and maybe in more frequent doses also. So there is a definite role which patient should understand, parents should understand in this case, because the child is not going to understand. The role of glasses, amblyopia therapy, even after correction may be required, because as I said, it may not be fully correctable. The big issue will come that the amount of refractive error we want to correct is not possible in majority of the patient, because usually 1, 2, 3 diopter of plus or minus hypermetropia or myopia is not a big concern for us, even if patient is not ready or not compliant or not able to wear glasses or contact lenses. Because doing this refractive surgery for a very low correction is not a common thing. Even the patient's parent will not understand and may not do it, and we will not get the support from our colleagues also, because usually when you say that you need to do some refractive surgery in a very small child, they will take second or third opinion. And 90% plus of the ophthalmologists, for the good reason also, will prevent doing refractive surgery. And with the confusion, patients' counseling becomes much more difficult. Another set of problem is that in adults, we do refractive surgery in local anesthesia, topical anesthesia, and patient cooperation is required. And you all must be aware about it, that refractive surgery by laser, the most important point for good correction in quality and refractive amount is a centration of the treatment over the cornea. If it is not centered, you are not going to achieve what actually you are aiming. And if you do a decentered ablations, the quality of vision is a big compromise. And if you do a small correction, the cornea is having enough thickness. But if you need to do a higher ablations, then you are going to compromise something on the cornea or on the optical zone of the laser ablation. When you reduce the optical zone, you start some set of problems, particularly that regression is very common, very fast. The quality of vision is a big compromise, and condition of vision in the night is really, really affecting patients' capability also. Iris registration, which we commonly now use in adult patients, is not possible, because for iris registration, you need to have one image preoperatively, which will be used during surgery. And cyclotorsion after general anesthesia is a big issue. The big issue is that adult patients are cooperating by maintaining their vision at a visual axis. Means their keen focus on a visual axis. The target is there in the laser, and when they see in that target point, the corrections are done on a visual axis, which are actually required. But patient under anesthesia, the eye will roll up or eye will be decentered. So you need to pull it, and whenever you pull it, actually what happens, the cornea gets some indentations, some folds, and laser is going to ablate according to that. So the some folds will be deeper in focus, or some part will be superior to the actual focus, and they will have a different energy delivery, and they will not achieve the way we want the profile of the cornea for correction of the refractive error. Though there are few reports in which they have done laser ablations, particularly for photorefractive keratectomy or a surface ablation. Less reports are for LASIK, more reports are for sublaser ablation. But the number of cases done are very few, and they are also of the opinion that it is not a sufficient study to say that this should be done, but they can be tried. And definitely we as a refractive surgery group are thinking that can we prepare some guidelines which can be used for doing it for more often for good results. But again, I said there are so many issues which I will discuss, that doing surgery in children, even in the review articles, the line given is the glasses first whenever possible. So it means they also are not in favor of doing refractive surgery. But definitely when you feel that nothing is working and child is going amblyopia, of a deep amblyopia, which we can consider in other terms like a blind eye, because as we all know, the vision less than 660 is not very useful even for social reasons. There is a one good article in the Journal of Cataract Surgery for LASIK, but there were definite issues raised by Dr. Vajpayee from All India Institute of Medical Sciences that these LASIKs should be avoided for the many reasons. The common ones are that we are not very sure about the refractive error. We are not very sure the refractive error, how frequently or how fast it will change. There is a decrease in the contrast sensitivity, more so when we are going to do a high refractive corrections. Persistence of amblyopigenic stimulus, which we want to remove, may not be removed because of the poor quality of vision if achieved later. And as the patient was not ready to wear glasses before, if he is still left with significant refractive error, or soon the significant effect comes in, like within 1 or 2 years, and patient is still in amblyopigenic age, the purpose will be lost. Nobody is sure about the long-term favorable outcome of these LASIK in an early age. And one important thing, as I said, that the keratoconus in whom will develop, still we don't know in an early age. So that is another issue. The second issue is that when we give some surgery and still there is a significant amount of refractive left over, we can't do a second surgery in these patients so often. And as I said in the beginning, that the haze is very common, and because of haze, quality decreases, quantity decreases, and refractive error comes back. And because of some haze, what actually happens is that light is not actually entering the way we want, because some areas will have haze, not all areas will have haze. So that is also a big issue. It is rarely visible on torchlight, but on slit lamp examination it is visible. You can use antimitotics, you can use steroids, but in a very limited and safe manner only. In adults, we are more comfortable in using these things. The another options are, as I said in the beginning, that you can have a phakic lens as a choice. But the big problem in these children again is because the basics of phakic lens, the sizing is the most important thing which will decide that patient will have complication or no complication, as well as refractive correction. The biggest advantage of phakic lens is that you can actually correct high refractive errors. But unfortunately, it is more so only for myopia. For hypermetropia, it is going to be a big problem in high refractive errors, because in high hypermetropia, usually eyes are smaller. And because of that, we are not going to have enough anterior chamber depth, because for ICL, ideally the anterior chamber depth should be 3 millimeter, which is not achievable in most of the hypermetropia. There can be complications like cataract or glaucoma because of the lens implantation surgery itself, or reaction because of the touch in the either iris or on the lens. The advantage of phakic lens is that it is reversible almost fully, because you implant and you remove, the same refractive error will come back. But we are not very sure that how the sizing of the eye will change. It is difficult to measure actual white to white. If you are not able to measure actual white to white, then ICL will be undersized or oversized, and both are having a big problem. So that is the issue. Another issue which we advise patient of all phakic lenses not to rub eyes anytime, forever, which we can't explain to the child very significantly to have that he will not rub. So that also is a big issue, and it can create complications. Refractive lens exchange, I am just putting it. I am not in favor of this by any means. Though we are doing a lot of pediatric cataracts, and the pediatric cataracts are not having problem like what I am going to narrate. But we all know that doing refractive lens exchange, even in the adults or middle age, we are seeing complications, particularly for myopic refractive lens exchange. So the issues with the refractive lens exchange, again, IOL power calculation to the accuracy is a must. We have handheld keratometers. We can do axial length measurement by ultrasound, immersion ultrasound under anesthesia, but still the refractive power calculation is an issue, because we have different thoughts that should be reduced 20%, 10%, or what amount of power should be implanted lower than that. As Dr. Shukla sir already pointed out, there are so many patients goes for emmetropation, but there are some patients who never go for emmetropation. So if you leave undercorrected refractive error, particularly for hypermetropia, they may maintain high refractive error even after refractive lens exchange. And for myopia, there are different sets of problems, so that is usually avoided. So you can think, if you are thinking for myopia, think for phakic lens. If you are thinking for hypermetropia, think of refractive lens exchange. Loss of accommodation is also going to have a very negative impact on development of a child, particularly for amblyopia, for his lifestyle, because accommodation is a big advantage after correcting one part of refractive error. We can't think of doing multifocal, trifocal, or any kind of multifocality lenses like accommodative or something in a children, because of different sets of problem of maintaining the centration of IOL, posterior capsular opacification. If you do a YAG, that is a problem. If you do a posterior capsulotomy during the primary surgery, there is a problem for maintaining the centration. The another issue is that what all capsule you leave for implanting the IOL, that can have an unequal fibrosis, and because of that also the centration is an issue. The vitreous thirst created during surgery, immediately after surgery, can also cause an issue with the centration. When you apply sutures, they have their own effect for astigmatism and the quality of vision, which may be left over. As very important that if you don't correct astigmatism, that is a big issue. Implanting a toric lens of a multifocal nature, and you know the axis of the astigmatism keep on changing from vertical to horizontal, which will also have an issue. So there are so many issues, and you are only left with the monofocal lenses. And if you do monofocal lens, the accommodation is lost. So you are trying to achieve one thing, you are at the cost of one big thing. Accommodation is a big reason that the children will develop good vision, and particularly for the mental development, it is a required thing. And postoperative issues you all know, so I'm not going to details. Though they are not very common, but if they are there, they are going to have a big problem in your success. Routinely, we don't do a pediatric LASIK. There is a common dictum. We can do some other surgeries, but still refrain. The thing is that when you think of doing surgeries, you actually don't put your own efforts to correct amblyopia or use glasses or contact lenses as a primary tool. Because we as a surgeon try to do a surgeries more often in adults, but for children, it should be reverse. You should try to do glasses, contact lenses, do counseling, again and again counseling, put extra effort, give extra chair time, give time to the child also. Many child don't understand, but when you give time, they understand. So my take home message that it should be the last resort. Classes, contact lenses should be tried. The patient counseling and parent counseling, parents counseling, both are very, very important. I don't ignore children during counseling. There are many parents, they want their children should go out when you are discussing. I say them that I will discuss something which is really required for a child. And if I require to tell something which is very negative, that time only I say that you come again or call me on phone or something. So then we can have a separate session in which child does not know that something is being discussed as a hidden. Because when he have a curiosity that something was told to me, something is not told to me, he still have a negative mindset.
Viren, now
Negative
just
mindset, there is a
sum up
problem.
because we have to have some time for
Just last
questions.
slide, sir. So if at all to be chosen, surface ablation can be chosen as a better option. Importance of follow-up is very, very important. The lens implantation like phakic or RLE should also be taken on a backseat. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very Viren. Very extensively you have elaborated, the refractive surgery in children. Of course, there are many concerns, but nowadays, as even people of 60 years in the Western world are going for LASIK. I mean, even
Yes.
ladies are 60. But in children, we have a lot of concerns. We all know about it. Now, this is open to questions. If anybody want to ask any questions, Swapnil.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please
So we are
open it.
open for discussion and we are also open for questions if there are
Yes.
any. We
Like to have some,
questions
because
for
since it is an instruction course, where the questions are welcome. We like to have how much the people have understood both these lectures. Both have been talks have been very comprehensively. I think they have been delivered. So any questions anybody would like to ask? Any concerns? Any comment?
You can either unmute yourself or you can write it in the chat. We can take up the questions in that way also.
No, let it be open. People are there on the they can ask on this platform.
Meanwhile, somebody asked, can I ask one question to you, sir?
Me? Yes, please.
Yeah. Sir, there are questions or commonly people are still not using occlusion. So what is your take on this? That should you do something that most of the ophthalmologists start using occlusion and they should create a positive vibrations in the parents' mind that occlusion is very, very important for amblyopia treatment or prevention.
Occlusion now is a different subject. Amblyopia, it will come in the amblyopia. But there's been a lot of pedic studies bhi bahut sari hui hain, and now there is a change in the paradigm of occlusion also. We're starting with 2 hours, 6 hours, and then up to 12 hours. But of course, the treatment of amblyopia is still the gold standard is still occlusion. There is no doubt about it. But there are a lot of parameters: mild, moderate, severe amblyopia. In mild amblyopia, usually we start with only 2 hours of occlusion to begin with, and then we see for about 6 weeks, which is the standard way of seeing. And if there is any improvement, then we continue with that. If there is no improvement, we switch on to 6 hours of this thing. More than 6 hours in moderate amblyopia is not required. But if the amblyopia is moderate or severe, means more than 636 or 660, then of course there is no shortcut than a full-time occlusion, almost about 10 to 12 hours. Full-time occlusion, then also alternate day. Now we have the binocular therapy also now, which we are doing. And we have a lot of gadgets now, not available in India, but at least the importance of viewing TV is also one of the we are stimulating the binocular vision, because now it has been also found that the suppression of the bad eye by the good eye, because of the binocular, we have 60% binocular cells in the eye. So those binocular cells are also, they are subdued because of the amblyopia. So we want to stimulate those binocular cells also to treat uniocular amblyopia also, so that the basic aim is that not only the uniocular vision should improve, but also the stereopsis should also improve after amblyopia treatment, and that stereopsis and fusion will only improve when you treat the binocular, stimulate the binocular cells also. So that is not the dichoptic therapy system which is now in vogue is also that. But of course, there is no shortcut from treatment amblyopia. But then there are in the refractive errors, we all know that how much to treat is it's a different subject after all. But especially in cases of like you have a unilateral cataract and you're not able to operate at least by 2 years or 3 years of age, then you must occlude at least for 2 hours per day the good eye so that the cataractous eye would receive at least some light, some development of the retina. And we are not concerned with the retina. Retina is only mildly affected, but the visual cortex is affected. Main is that. Any questions? Any questions from the audience?
The one more thing I want to highlight particularly is that in children, the glasses should be of proper size. They should be properly placed. There are many of the children I have seen, they are wearing glasses which are having a flat top. Flat top means the nasal bridge is at the upper margin of the glasses. And because of this, their field is restricted, or very often they see above the glasses. So
there are many problems, and unfortunately the biggest point is that the ophthalmologist does not deliver anything about the type of glasses should be used. Myopia is different, hypermetropia. That's why in my book of management of refractive errors and spectacle correction, lot of emphasis has been given on proper spectacle wearing also, and that we leave it to the optometrist, and he plays all sort of according to his because the more the payment
just for the benefit we are discussing how the glasses should be made.
जो glasses बच्चे को पसंद आते हैं और माँ बाप को सस्ते पड़ते हैं वो दे दिया जाता है. You see, the most unfortunate thing is this. So the doctor should also explain to the patient what type of glasses should be given.
Similarly, the centration should always be checked by ophthalmologist once glasses are made, because high refractive errors, if they are not properly centered, they will have prismatic effect, and because of that prismatic effect, either they develop
any refractive
will not have fusion.
Of course, any refractive more than 5 has prismatic effect. So not only the centering, even the size of the glasses is very important. The larger the size, the more the prismatic effect, because the child has to look more down, and the myopic glasses are thicker in the periphery. So they act as concave. That concave lens acts as a prism with a base down. This thing. So all those sort of problems are there. But I think 99% of ophthalmologists will not describe anything to the parent what type of glasses. So
should be that aberration should be looked after during glasses and for surgeries. And if it is being not done, then there is going to be a problem. And Dr. Shukla sir has really pointed out that all the patients, pediatric cataract, I would like to say particularly of my interest, should be addressed at the earliest, rather than doing the dilation, cyclopegia, or avoiding one eye or other eye. The surgery should be done as a immediate basis. May not be implanting IOL in a very small child, but now we are implanting IOL in majority less than 1 year, and some patients even 6 months plus also we are implanting IOL without any complication and problem. So I think the pediatric cataract need to be given urgent care, and there should not be any doubt that let the child grow, because the common word we hear is that let the child grow, we'll see after a few months, and because of that only the patient keep on waiting rather than few months, few years, and that becomes a big problem that goes into a deep amblyopia.
So Swapnil, do you want that we should stop here?